Turn the lights back on. Wow. Retro electro tech. When real audio ruled the world.
Greetings once again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ernest with Retro Electro Tech, and we are back in the saddle again with this B&K AV as an Alpha Victory 5000 Series 2 multi-channel amplifier, which came to me with a bad potentiometer complaint. And if you check out the part 2 video concerning this amp, I go over some down and dirty testing to verify that complaint. And on that note, pot number 3 and pot number 4, which of course normally mount to the back panel of this amp, which are obviously pulled out, they prove to be problematic pots. And anyways, input level 4 or pot 4, you know, that proved to just be a defective pot altogether, and number 3 just appeared to be very dirty. Nonetheless, the customer wanted me to change all of them. So as you can see here, these are the old pots, and these ones here are the new ones, which I will be mounting here to this board. And now before I install any new parts, and that goes for anything, whether it's caps, resistors, transistors, or whatever the case, I always test them to make sure a dud doesn't work its way into a piece of equipment. So while doing so, I'll quickly show why I prefer the analog meter versus the digital meter when sweeping a pot through its range. Now these are all 50K audio taper pots, and on camera I'm only going to sweep through one pot, okay? You know, one on the analog and then one on the digital. Okay, so I'm clipped onto one of the new pots, and we'll just sweep it through its range a couple times, and you'll see how nice and smooth it's going to sweep through its range, okay? And I'll do it one more time. Okay, now on to the digital. Okay, I'm going to run this pot through its range. I'm going to rotate the shaft as smooth as possible. And here I go. As you can see, the digits are of course jumpy in comparison to the analog meter. Now you can eyeball the bar graph at the bottom on DMMs that provide such, but it's still not the same, of course, you know, especially when you need to observe whether a pot is transitioning smoothly through its range without any bumps, jitter, or dead spots. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and get these pots on board, soldered in place, and then provide a final test of this amp. So I decided before continuing on with getting the new pots mounted to the board and testing the amp to demonstrate what the bad pots look like on the analog meter, since I was on that subject, and why the analog meter is beneficial for that type of testing when you want to sweep through a pot's range and look at how it's behaving and whether or not there's, you know, bumps and jitter and, you know, indicative of either a really dirty pot or a defective pot. So right now I have the pot number 3 hooked up to the meter, and as far as I know, it's just really dirty and gunked up. It feels like it is when you rotate the shaft, but anyways, I'm going to sweep through its range, and I'm going to start now, and I'm just going to climb very smooth. So you can see I'm just barely starting to move up its range, and it's already really jittery, and look at that. It's not even really all that responsive, and then it bounces around, and you get the picture. Yeah, and I'm rotating it just in one smooth motion. Okay, now it's starting to smooth out just a little bit. Okay. So more so in the beginning, but this is probably just a really dirty pot, gunked up and all that. So let me go ahead and disconnect, and now I'm going to hook up to the defective pot that has the dead spot and go from there. Okay, so I'm going to start rotating it, and it will actually transition a little bit smooth initially, and And there's a few spots that it gets a bit bumpy. Okay, right there, it starts getting kind of bumpy, yeah. Yeah, and now it's just kind of not really responding. And then I rotate a little more, and at about 30K, it just drops off completely. And if I continue rotating it, it just doesn't do anything. And then boom, I'm at the end right there. And yeah, so yeah, it's a clearly bad pot. So I just wanted to demonstrate that real quick to show you all the benefits of an analog meter when you want to assess those type of problems and, you know, see if a pot is transitioning smoothly through its range, as I've already mentioned. All right, pots are all soldered to the board. Everything's looking good, like it should. So I'm going to go ahead and get the board back in the amp, of course, and start the testing process. Okay, so all the new input level control pots are in place, of course. I have a 1 kilohertz tone feeding into input 1. I have an 8 ohm dummy load on output number 1. Of course, during this testing, I'm going to be keeping all of the other pots turned all the way down because I don't have any any dummy loads or any speakers attached to the other outputs. So I'm just going to move through sequentially, and that's that. So the sole purpose of this test, by the way, is again just to make sure that what's going in clean is coming out clean while I rotate the corresponding input level control pot through its range, and I just want to make sure that there's no noise. And you know, again, there was those issues involving pot number 3 and pot number 4, and now that there's new pots in place, there should be no issues. So let's just go ahead and verify all that, and I'm going to pan on over to the screen of the scope, get zoomed in. Okay, good enough. And here is pot number 1. Okay, I'll do that. I'll just do each of them 3 times, just kind of rotate them through their range. Looking good. Okay, let me plug in my dummy load to output number 2. My signal into input number 2. And here's pot number 2. Okay. Why am I doing it 3 times? No reason. It's just an arbitrary number. 3rd time's a charm, I guess. All right, let me move my dummy load on over to output number 3, get my signal into input number 3, and here's pot number 3. Remember, this was the position that the previous pot was in, input level 3 here, that was very, very dirty. By the way, off camera a while ago I cleaned it because I was just curious about that pot, and I flushed it out a few times and exercised it a bit, and it's fine now. I checked it on the analog meter, and it was transitioning through its range just fine. So that one was just really dirty, but number 4, which we're moving on over to now, let me get my dummy load on the output here. Signal in number 4, and here's the pot number 4 that was defective, the other one. Okay. As you can see, this new one is nice and smooth. 2. And third time's a charm. Nice and smooth. Okay. And here's the last output 5. Plug into input 5, my signal, 1 kilohertz tone. Here's pot number 5. Okay, so all the new pots are looking good. Nice and smooth. And I'm not really doing anything else. I'm not going to dive in and do any other type of testing because, again, according to the customer, the sample's working okay other than those pots that he was having some issues with. And otherwise, that's it. Thank you, all of you, for watching that are into this sort of thing. And like I always say, peace, love, rock and roll, and of course, vintage audio.
This is a poor man's shoe production.